The night the chains closed around her ankles, the moon hid its face. In the ancient kingdom of Canberra, where red earth breathed under bare feet and drums spoke louder than words, people whispered that the ancestors had turned away. The wind moved slowly that night, carrying dust, fear, and the smell of betrayal. Her name was Naima. She was a black woman born under the sound of thunder, raised by a river that never forgot names. She was once the first wife of King Zuberi, chosen by elders, blessed by spirits, and crowned before the sacred fire. Her laughter used to warm the palace walls. Her wisdom guided the council. Her hands fed the poor. But all that ended when Malika, the king's secret mistress, entered the palace like a quiet snake. No one saw the poison at first. On the night of Naima's fall, torches burned low. The palace guards stood silent, their eyes refusing to meet hers. The drums did not play. That alone was wrong. In Canberra, drums always spoke during judgment. Naima stood in the center of the courtyard, barefoot on cold stone. Her white robe was torn. Her hair, once braided with cowrie shells, fell loose around her shoulders. Elders sat in a circle, their faces tight like dry leather. King Zuberi sat above them, heavy on his throne, his crown shining but his eyes dark. "Speak," said Elder Cato, his voice weak like dying fire. Naima lifted her chin. "I'm innocent." Her voice did not shake, but her heart did. Malika stood beside the king, wrapped in red silk, her lips curved in false sorrow. She held a small leather pouch in her hand. "She poisons the king," Malika cried softly. "I found this under her sleeping mat. Dark herbs. Forbidden ones." Gasps filled the courtyard. The wind hissed through the palm trees like spirits arguing. Naima's eyes moved to the pouch. She knew those herbs. They were healing roots, used only by women trained in ancient medicine. Her mother had taught her before joining the ancestors. "They heal," Naima said. "They do not kill." King Zuberi slammed his staff against the ground. "Boom! Enough," he roared. "For months I have weakened. My dreams are filled with blood. My ancestors turn their backs on me. And always, Malika stands beside me in truth." Naima felt the cut then, not in flesh, but in spirit. Truth. He did not look at her. Not once. The elders avoided her eyes. Fear ruled them. The king had changed since Malika arrived. His voice carried anger. His sleep was restless. His love for Naima had dried like a forgotten river. "By the law of Canberra," Elder Cato said slowly, "anyone who plots against the life of the king shall be removed from the sun." Removed from the sun. A punishment older than memory. Naima's breath caught. "No," she whispered. "You cannot." Chains clashed. Guards stepped forward, iron cold and heavy. They wrapped the chains around her ankles and wrists. The metal bit into her skin. Blood touched the stone. The drums remained silent. As they dragged her across the courtyard, Naima finally looked at King Zuberi. "Look at me," she said. He did not. Malika did. And she smiled. The prison lay beneath the palace, carved deep into the rock like a wound that never healed. No firelight reached it. Only darkness, damp air, and the sound of dripping water. They threw Naima inside like a broken pot. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed her whole. At first, she screamed. She called the names of the ancestors. She prayed to the river spirit that raised her. Her voice bounced off stone walls and came back weak and tired. Days passed. Or maybe weeks. Time had no meaning in the dark. Rats crawled near her feet. Cold water soaked her skin. Hunger twisted her stomach until pain became normal. Yet Naima did not die. Something older than fear lived inside her. At night, when the world above slept, she heard whispers. Soft at first. Then clearer. "Naima." She pressed her back against the wall, heart pounding. "Naima, daughter of the river." The air grew warm. A faint blue glow filled the cell. From the stone wall, a figure slowly formed, tall, dark, and made of smoke and light. It was Queen Mother Abini, her grandmother, long joined with the ancestors. Tears ran down Naima's face. "Grandmother." "You have been wronged," the spirit said, her voice deep like drums heard from far away. Betrayed by love. Buried while still breathing. Why? Naima cried. Why did the king believe her? The spirit's eyes burned bright. Because his heart is already lost, Abini replied. And when a heart is lost, darkness finds it easily. The light faded. The cell returned to shadow. But Naima was no longer alone. From that night, the ancestors came often. Warriors with scarred chests. Queens crowned with fire. Hunters who spoke with animals. They taught her to listen beyond walls, to feel the pulse of the earth even underground. They taught her patience. Above her, the kingdom of Canberra began to rot. The king grew cruel. The rains delayed. Children fell sick. Crops failed. Drums sounded wrong. Malika whispered into the king's ears, and with every whisper, his shadow grew longer. Yet deep below, in silence and chains, Naima waited. She counted time by pain and memory. 1 year passed. Then 2. On the final night of the 2nd year, the earth trembled. The prison shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Naima felt it in her bones before she heard it. Change was coming. The ancestors gathered around her, their forms glowing brighter than ever. Your chains will break, Queen Mother Abini said. But freedom is not the end. Naima lifted her head, eyes burning in the dark. What waits for me? She asked. The spirit answered slowly, each word heavy as fate. The day you return to the sun. The man who buried you will face total ruin. Above ground, thunder rolled. And for the first time in 2 years, Naima smiled. The tremor that shook the prison did not stop that night. It moved through the bones of the earth, through roots of ancient trees, through the red clay streets of Canberra. Dogs howled. Birds flew from their nests. The wind circled the palace like a warning spirit. King Zuberi woke from sleep, sweat covering his body. His chest burned. His breath came fast. He saw Naima's eyes in the dark, calm, strong, accusing. No, he whispered, sitting up. Beside him, Malika stirred. Her hair fell like black water over her shoulders. She smiled when she saw fear on the king's face. My king, she said softly, placing her hand on his chest. Bad dreams again. Zuberi nodded. The ancestors will not leave me. Malika's smile hardened for a moment, then softened again. Dreams are nothing. It is power that matters. Outside, drums began to beat, slow, uneven, wrong. That was the first sign. In the village below the palace, people gathered around fires, whispering. Old women shook their heads. Hunters returned empty-handed. The river ran low and dark, its surface silent. Elder Cato walked with a heavy staff, his back bent like a question that had no answer. The spirits are restless, he told the council. Something buried is crying. The younger elders avoided his eyes. Fear sat among them like a stranger who refused to leave. No one cries beneath stone, said one. The queen was judged. Elder Cato said nothing. But in his dreams, he heard chains. Below the palace, Naima sat with her back straight, chains still on her wrists. The tremor had cracked the prison wall, letting a thin line of moonlight touch the floor. She reached toward it like a plant reaching for the sun. The ancestors returned stronger than before. This time, they did not only speak. They showed her. She saw Malika in the palace garden, pouring dark liquid into the king's drink. She saw Malika speaking to a shadow that had no face. She saw blood on red silk. She feeds him sickness, Naima said, her voice steady. Yes, Queen Mother Abini replied. And the sickness spreads to the land. Naima closed her eyes. Rage rose like fire, but the ancestors cooled it. Not yet, they warned. Power grows in silence. Above ground, Malika tightened her grip on the kingdom. She ordered warriors to collect heavy taxes. She whispered fear into the king's ear, turning him against the elders. She told him Naima still lived in the spirit world, plotting revenge. The people love her memory, Malika said. Kill it. King Zuberi listened. He ordered Naima's name erased from songs. He banned women from wearing her colors. He commanded the drums to stop playing the river rhythms she loved. But the land refused to forget. At night, women dreamed of chains breaking. Children pointed to the palace and cried for no reason. The wind carried a woman's name through the savannah. Naima. The tension grew like a storm that refused to break. One evening, the sacred fire refused to light. The priest trembled. The ancestors reject us. Malika laughed softly. Use oil. Fire is fire. But when the flame finally burned, it turned blue. Gasps filled the courtyard. Blue fire meant judgment. King Zuberi's hands shook. His crown felt heavy. His heart beat like a drum of war. That night, he ordered the prison checked. Bring me proof she is dead, he demanded. The guard bowed, fear in his eyes. My king, no one has entered the lower prison in 2 seasons. Zuberi's face darkened. Then go. Below, Naima heard footsteps. The ancestors faded into shadow. The door opened with a scream of metal. Light stabbed her eyes. A guard stood frozen, staring at her. She stood tall despite her chains. Her skin was thin, but her eyes burned like coals. You, the guard whispered. You are still alive. Naima smiled slowly. So is your king, she said. For now. The guard ran. Above ground, thunder answered. The rising tension wrapped the kingdom like a tightening rope. Because once the truth was seen, nothing could remain buried. The guard ran through the palace like a man chased by spirits. His sandals slapped the stone floor. His breath came sharp and fast. Every torch he passed flickered as if afraid. He burst into the royal chamber and fell to his knees. My king, he cried. She lives. King Zuberi froze. Malika's hand tightened on his arm. Who lives? She asked calmly, but her eyes burned. Naima, the guard whispered. She stands. She speaks. The chains do not break her. Silence fell heavy. The wind outside rose suddenly, pushing against the palace walls. The drums far away beat once, then stopped. Zuberi's face drained of color. His mind flooded with memories, Naima's voice, her steady gaze, the night he turned away. No, he said. You lie. I swear by my ancestors, the guard said. She waits beneath us. Malika stepped forward, her red silk brushing the floor. Then kill her, she said. Finish what you started. The guard shook. I cannot. The air around her is not empty. The ancestors stand there. For the first time, fear cracked Malika's calm. Leave us, Zuberi ordered. The guard fled. Below the palace, Naima knelt beside the cracked wall. Moonlight now reached her fully. The stone felt warm under her fingers. Queen Mother Abini appeared again, brighter than before. The wall will fall, the spirit said. But when it does, you must choose your path. Naima looked up. I will return. Yes, Abini replied. But not as before. The ancestors showed her one final truth. She saw the future split like a road in the forest. One path burned with anger. The other glowed with justice. Revenge without wisdom destroys even the innocent, the spirit warned. Naima closed her eyes and breathed. I will walk with truth, she said. The ancestors nodded. The wall cracked deeper. Above ground, the kingdom trembled. The river overflowed its banks at dawn, flooding the market. Fishermen cried out as nets tore. Crops drowned in muddy water. The savanna grass bent low under angry wind. Elder Cato stood before the people. This is no accident, he said. The land responds to wrong. Murmurs spread. The first queen, someone whispered. Naima, another said. Fear turned into hope. That night, Malika met with shadows beyond the palace. She stood at the edge of the forest, torches behind her, darkness ahead. You promised power, she hissed. A voice answered from nowhere. Power has a price. I paid it, Malika snapped. I removed the queen. The voice laughed, low and cold. You buried her body, not her spirit. Malika's hands trembled. What do you want? Blood, the voice said. Malika turned away, her heart racing. Back in the prison, the cracked wall finally gave way. Stone fell. Dust filled the air. Naima shielded her face as fresh air rushed in, air that smelled of rain and freedom. She stepped through the broken wall into a hidden tunnel, ancient and forgotten. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, marks of queens who ruled before kings took power. Her footsteps echoed like drums. At the tunnel's end, she emerged into the forest behind the palace. Moonlight bathed her skin. The wind touched her face like a blessing. She fell to her knees and pressed her hands into the earth. "I have returned," she whispered. The forest answered. Owls hooted. Leaves rustled. The river roared in the distance. At dawn, rumors exploded across Canberra. She escaped. The first queen walks again. Chains cannot hold truth. King Zuberi sat alone on his throne, staring at the empty doorway. Malika watched him carefully. "We must act." Zuberi said nothing. His heart felt heavy. His crown felt like a curse. Far from the palace, Naima stood at the river of her childhood. She washed the prison from her skin. She braided her hair with grass and white shells. She looked into the water and saw not a prisoner, but a woman shaped by fire and silence. Behind her, an old hunter stepped forward. "Queen," he said, bowing low. "The land has been waiting." Naima turned, eyes calm, voice steady. "Then let the truth rise," she said. And across Canberra, the drums began to play again. The drums did not stop. They rolled across the land like thunder trapped inside skin and wood. From the mountains to the riverlands, from deep forest paths to dry savanna villages, people listened and felt their hearts answer. The rhythm was old. Older than kings. Older than lies. Naima walked through the forest with slow, steady steps. The hunter who bowed to her, Jabori, walked behind her in silence. He was a man shaped by years of tracking beasts and men, his eyes sharp, his spirit careful. "You should not return yet," Jabori said quietly. "The palace is restless." Naima touched the bark of a tall iroko tree. "The land called me back," she replied. "And when the land speaks, hiding becomes a sin." They moved through shadows until they reached a small village near the river. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Children stopped playing when they saw her. Women dropped their baskets. One old woman stepped forward, her face lined like dry earth. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Are you the queen they buried?" Naima met her eyes. "They buried my body," she said. "Not my truth." A cry rose from the people, half joy, half pain. Some fell to their knees. Others wept openly. That night, the village gathered around a fire. Drums beat softly. Flames danced on faces filled with hope and fear. Naima spoke. "I did not return for blood," she said. "I returned for balance." The elders nodded. Warriors touched the ground in respect. The ancestors watched from the dark spaces between firelight. In the palace, balance was breaking. King Zuberi could no longer sleep. Food tasted like ash. Every corner of the palace seemed to whisper Naima's name. Malika paced like a trapped animal. "She gathers the people," she said. "Soon they will turn against you." Zuberi rubbed his face. "I never ordered her death." Malika's eyes flashed. "You ordered her burial. Is that not the same?" Zuberi looked away. For the first time, doubt crept into his chest. That same night, Elder Cato arrived at the village fire where Naima sat. His steps were slow. His shoulders bent under the weight of regret. "My queen," he said, bowing low. "Forgive an old man." Naima rose and helped him stand. "Truth does not grow in shame," she said gently. "Speak." "We were afraid," Cato confessed. "Malika poisoned the council with fear. The king's shadow was long. We failed you." Naima closed her eyes. The fire cracked loudly. "What the elders allowed," she said slowly, "the ancestors recorded." Cato trembled. "What will you do?" Naima looked toward the palace, glowing faintly in the distance. "I will face him." Malika felt it before it happened. The wind shifted. The fire in her chamber flickered violently. Her reflection in the bronze mirror twisted and bent. she screamed and threw the mirror to the ground. That night, the shadow returned. "You are losing," the voice said. "No," Malika cried. "I gave you everything." "You gave ambition," the shadow replied. "Not loyalty." "What do you want?" she begged. The shadow leaned closer. "A sacrifice." Malika's breath shook. "Who?" The shadow smiled without a mouth. "The king." At dawn, Naima began her walk to the palace. She did not hide. Villagers joined her path. Hunters, women, elders, warriors. The drums grew louder with every step. The air thickened. Clouds gathered. From the palace gates, guards watched in fear as the river of people approached. "She walks like a queen," one whispered. "She is the queen," another replied. The gates opened slowly. King Zuberi stood waiting. He wore his crown, but it looked heavy, too large for his head. His eyes met Naima's at last. Time froze. "I wronged you," he said hoarsely. Naima stepped closer. "You buried truth for desire." Malika appeared beside him, smiling too quickly. "She uses tricks," Malika said. "Spirits and lies." The ground shook. A cold wind blew through the courtyard. The drums stopped. From the shadows of the pillars, ancestors appeared. Warriors, queens, hunters, silent and watching. Malika screamed. King Zuberi fell to his knees. Naima raised her hand. "This is not the end," she said. "This is the moment of choosing." The sky darkened, and the kingdom held its breath. Silence ruled the palace courtyard. Not the peaceful silence of dawn, but the heavy silence that comes before disaster. Even the wind held still. The ancestors stood like living shadows around the stone pillars, their eyes burning with ancient judgment. King Zuberi knelt on the cold ground, his hands shaking. His crown slid from his head and rolled across the stone, stopping at Naima's feet. Malika screamed again, her voice sharp and broken. "This is witchcraft. Lies from the dead." No one listened. The people filled the courtyard now, villagers, hunters, warriors, elders. Drums waited, hands frozen above skin. Firelight flickered, painting fear and hope on every face. Naima stepped forward. Each step felt like thunder. She looked down at the crown, then at the man who once shared her bed, her dreams, her future. "Stand," she said. King Zuberi lifted his head slowly. His eyes were wet. "I see now," he whispered. "I was blind." "Blindness does not excuse betrayal," Naima replied. Malika moved back, her red silk dragging across the ground like spilled blood. "You promised me power," she shouted at the king. "You promised I would rule." The air grew cold. The ancestors shifted. Queen Mother Abini stepped forward, her spirit glowing brighter than the sun hidden behind clouds. "Power taken by poison always demands payment," she said. The ground cracked beneath Malika's feet. She screamed and tried to run, but the warriors blocked her path. Shadows wrapped around her ankles like living chains. "No!" Malika cried. "I did what I had to do." Naima raised her hand again. "Let the truth speak," she said. The air shimmered. Images rose like smoke before everyone's eyes. They saw Malika pouring sickness into the king's cup. They saw her whispering lies to the elders. They saw her meeting shadows in the forest, trading blood for power. The people gasped. Some cried. Others fell to their knees. King Zuberi covered his face. "I destroyed my own house," he sobbed. Thunder exploded above. Rain began to fall, hard, heavy drops striking the earth like judgment. The drums began to beat again, loud and fast. Malika collapsed, screaming as the shadows tightened. "This kingdom rejects you," Queen Mother Abini declared. The ground opened beneath Malika with a roar. Wind screamed. Fire flared blue. With one final cry, Malika vanished into the earth, swallowed by darkness. The ground closed. Silence returned. Rain washed the blood-red silk away. King Zuberi crawled forward, pressing his forehead to the stone at Naima's feet. "Take my life," he begged. "I deserve nothing." Naima looked at him for a long moment. She remembered the prison. The chains. The silence. She remembered the ancestors' warning. Revenge without wisdom destroys even the innocent. She turned to the people. What is broken cannot be healed by more breaking, she said. She faced the king again. You will live, she said calmly. And you will watch what you destroyed rise without you. King Zuberi trembled. I strip you of your crown, Naima continued. You will leave this palace. You will walk among the people as a man, not a ruler. You will carry your shame until your last breath. The elders bowed. The warriors struck their spears to the ground in agreement. The ancestors nodded. King Zuberi wept openly as guards led him away. No chains, only disgrace. The storm slowly faded. Sunlight broke through the clouds, touching the courtyard with gold. Naima stood alone at the center, rainwater dripping from her hair, her face calm and strong. Elder Cato stepped forward, his voice shaking. The throne is empty, he said. The land calls your name. The people knelt. Naima felt the earth breathe beneath her feet. She felt the ancestors behind her. She felt the future waiting. She lifted the fallen crown. I will not rule as before, she said. This kingdom will no longer bury truth in darkness. The drums thundered. And the land answered with light. The climax had passed, but the final lesson still waited. Morning came softly to the kingdom of Canberra. Not with fear, not with silence, but with birdsong, fresh wind, and the smell of wet earth. The storm of judgment had passed. The land breathed again. Naima stood at the edge of the palace balcony as the sun rose, its golden light touching the red earth, the river, the forests, and the distant mountains. The same sun that once disappeared when chains closed around her now greeted her face without shame. Below, the people gathered. Women carried calabashes of water. Elders leaned on their staffs. Hunters stood tall with bows resting at their sides. Children climbed onto shoulders, eager to see the woman the ancestors returned. The drums beat slowly, strong and steady. Not the drums of war. The drums of renewal. Naima walked down the palace steps, barefoot, feeling the stone, feeling the land. She did not wear silk or gold. Only white cloth and cowrie shells braided into her hair. She stood before the people. For 2 years, she said, her voice clear and calm, I lived where the sun could not find me. A quiet wave of emotion moved through the crowd. I was buried by lies. Chained by betrayal. Forgotten by those who feared power more than truth. She paused, letting the words settle. But the earth remembered me. The people murmured in agreement. The ancestors remembered me. A soft wind moved through the crowd. And because they remembered, Naima continued, I returned, not to destroy, but to restore. She raised her hands. The palace will no longer be a place of shadows. No woman will be silenced for another's desire. No ruler will stand above truth. The elders bowed deeply. Elder Cato stepped forward. Will you take the crown, my queen? Naima looked toward the throne, then toward the people. I will lead, she said, but not as a woman who rules alone. She turned to the elders. You will speak without fear. She turned to the warriors. You will protect, not oppress. She turned to the women. Your voices will no longer be buried. Cheers rose like thunder. Far from the palace, on a dusty road, a broken man walked alone. King Zuberi. No crown. No guards. No power. People passed him and did not bow. Some looked away. Others stared with quiet judgment. At night, he slept on hard ground and dreamed of chains that were not his own. He lived. And that was his punishment. Back in Canberra, the seasons changed. The rains returned on time. Crops grew tall. The river ran clear again. Children laughed without fear. Drums played freely at night, their rhythms dancing with firelight. Naima ruled with calm strength. She listened more than she spoke. She judged with wisdom, not anger. When disputes rose, she called upon elders, ancestors, and truth together. Sometimes, at night, she walked alone to the river. Queen Mother Abini would appear beside her, smiling. You chose well, the spirit said. Naima nodded. Pain taught me what power never could. The ancestor touched her shoulder gently before fading into moonlight. Years later, elders would tell this story by firelight. They would speak of a queen buried alive by betrayal, of chains that failed to break her spirit, of a king ruined not by revenge, but by truth. And they would end with this lesson, spoken slowly, so no one would forget. Those who bury the innocent for desire will one day be buried by their own choices. And the sun always remembers where truth is hidden. The fire would crackle, the drums would beat, and the children would listen, knowing that justice, though slow, never sleeps.